Hi friends, this is Ashley Lateki Ellenboss with Sky House Herb School and Apothecary, and today we'll be talking about thyme and three specific gifts. We've all heard the phrase, "thyme heals all wounds," and I think in the case of this herb, the phrase, even though we're playing on the word thyme, really is relevant. Right now, we're living through very challenging times. There's so much going on in the world, um, politically, environmentally, with the current pandemic right now. So there's a lot of wounding, and there's a lot of old wounds too that are resurfacing right now, especially here where I live in the United States. And so this idea of thyme healing all wounds, I just popped into my head while I was falling asleep last night, and I said, "Oh, thyme heals all wounds. Let me think about that." And I started thinking about the plant thyme and thinking about all of its medicinal qualities and its long history of use for all different kinds of wounds. So today we'll be exploring this plant along with three of its, I would say, kind of most relevant gifts for the current times we're living in. So thyme, the Latin name is Thymus vulgaris, and vulgaris means common. It comes from the word vulgar, which we think of as like a curse word, but vulgar just meant like the language of the common people. So we hear Thymus vulgaris just means it's a common thyme, or sometimes you'll hear it being called, it's called wild thyme. And so this is a wonderful aromatic herb. It's in the mint family. And it's been used throughout the ages for many, many different uses. It was used in ancient Rome as an herb of courage. It was used as an herb to protect against poisons, and it was used as an antidote to many poisons. It was used against plagues, and it was also thought to be a plant of the fairies. So those are just sort of a few of the ancient uses. It was also used by Egyptians for embalming. And so, we see it not only just as a medicinal plant, but also being used in a lot of sacred rituals and also healing practices. So let's take a look at three specific gifts that thyme may offer us right now in the current um, times that we're living in, no pun intended. So the first one is that thyme is thought of as an herb of protection. So what does this mean? Well, we can think of it from a number of different angles, but I would say kind of more traditionally, if we're going way back in time, it was used as a protective herb that was used in baths. It was burned in sacred spaces like churches and temples to fumigate and clear the air, so to protect the people from disease and also from bad spirits. So thyme was also thought to ward off pestilence, disease, and bad energies. So it has a long history of use in that very holy, sacred way. In the Middle Ages, thyme was also used as a herb of protection for warriors going into battle. And so often thyme was given to warriors, and they would tuck it into their armor and keep it close to them. And they believed that it was an herb of bravery and protection and courage. And in ancient Egypt, because it was used as an embalming agent, that sort of spurred this idea that thyme also will help create an easy passage to the next life. And so if you think about, being a soldier and heading off into battle, having something that not only gives you courage, but also will protect you if you transition, if you leave your body and go to the next life, that it will be a safe one. And I was just thinking about how relevant that is for so many people who are taking to the streets, who are speaking out, and who are taking on the armor to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And so thyme as a herb of courage and as an herb of the warrior just really speaks, I think, to the moment right now. And so if we are going to be going out in protest, or just doing even just being a parent is a radical statement, because you're raising your children in a way that can be part of the solution. So just tucking a little bit of time in your own shirt or in your own back pocket, just to kind of remind you of the battles that you're facing every day, and to give you that little bit of extra courage and fortitude, I think is a really nice idea. And also just it's an ancestral talisman that we can call upon in our modern times for how we're currently in battle. In the 1340s, the Black Death hit, and thyme was a very useful herb during that time. It was used as a poultice for open wounds and sores and blisters that were caused by the Black Plague. It was also used as a burning fumigating herb, and it was also drank as a tea, and used in different herbal preparations, because it is such a strong antiviral. And they didn't know it then, but we know now that thyme has a really powerful essential oil, or a volatile oil in it, called thymol, Thymol. And this particular compound is antiviral, antibacterial, antiseptic. It's also anthelmintic, which means that it protects against parasites. And it's also a wonderful herb that protects against candida and fungal overgrowths. So, it has this protective quality for the spirit, but also a very protective quality physically for the body. So how do we use thyme besides, tucking it in our aprons or our pockets? Well, we can also use it as a spray. So I like to make hydrosols. I grow thyme in my garden, and I'll just cook it down and create a hydrosol, where you're basically kind of distilling it and creating a water oil fusion that can be used as a room spray. And that's a really, really nice way to use a lot of our aromatic plants. So you can make yourself a hydrosol, just very easy to do at home. You can also use it as a bath. That was an ancient practice that was done for protection. So if you're going to be, going out into the world and you're feeling like, I'd really like a little bit of extra protection around me, you can take a bath with some thyme leaves in it. And they can be dried from your kitchen cabinet, from your spice rack, but they can also be fresh from your garden. Both ways, as long as the plant has that aromatic scent that it's going to give you, it's going to imbue that medicine and that quality into you and into your life. The second gift of this plant, of thyme, is that it is an evergreen. And so this is another thing that really spoke to me as I was thinking about this plant, that thyme is everlasting. And we know this from the way that thyme, the element of reality works too, that time just ticks on and on and on. It is inexhaustible. And so to me, thinking about thyme, the plant, as an evergreen reminds me too of the quality within us and the part of us that is everlasting, that is evergreen, that doesn't fade even as we get older, and maybe our dreams and our plans have to shift, that there is an evergreen quality that exists deep inside of us. The other thing that's really nice about this plant being an evergreen is that it can be grown year round. And that's a really nice thing to have plants um, that are living with you throughout time, that are everlasting as a part of your circle of friends and your circle of medicine. So thyme can be grown. It really likes to grow in pots. I have it in a pot on my deck. And so it's a really nice herb to just grow in a pot. It likes to grow also as a ground cover. So if you're looking for something to cover up maybe some dirt spots, you can also plant thyme as a ground cover. And it has these beautiful little white flowers, these little aromatic leaves that can be used as medicine and also in cooking. The Victorians believed that whenever you saw a patch of wild thyme, it meant that the fairies had been there, and it was considered to be a sign of good luck. So also I think for for me having two small kids, having a little patch of time, just like, okay, this is this is a sign because it's so tiny and dainty. The fairies have been here, or let's look at the time. This is where the fairies like to play and poke around. So it can be a really nice one also for stoking the imagination of children. And so, along with just sort of having it growing near you, some other ways that you can use thyme is in baking. And this was something that was done in ancient monasteries that, in Europe, monasteries were also the keepers, the monks and the nuns were keepers of medicine. And so their monasteries would have big apothecary gardens. And so a lot of the times they would use those herbs for their cooking, and especially in breads. So I would recommend, as a way of just sort of keeping that green, everlasting aroma, that scent. And then also we talked about the protective qualities, is using this as an herb that you kind of sprinkle into everything that you do year round. So okay, a little bit of thyme in your bread, a little bit of thyme in your soup, a little thyme in your salad dressing. And it's a really nice, flavorful, and protective plant that can be used in that way year round. And the third way that thyme is a bestower of great gifts is because of its long use for the lungs and as a strengthener of the breath. And for me right now, because there's so much tension and angst, and with COVID-19 being something that can attack and really harm the lungs, thinking about something that will protect the lungs and also just help us all to take some deep breaths, which I think is just such good medicine all the time, but especially now, just remembering to breathe. And so thyme can also remind us to breathe, because a lot of the compounds in thyme are they're very they're opening to the airways. They're bronchodilators. And so thyme has a long history of use for asthma, bronchitis, laryngitis, tonsillitis, all issues of the throat, and also issues in the lungs. And there was a study that was done. It was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study in 2007 that took a number of people with acute bronchitis and tested thyme against a placebo. And what they found was that in 67.1% of people who took it experienced less coughing fits as opposed to the placebo-controlled group, which was 51%. But even more dramatic was that after 7 to 9 days, the people with the acute bronchitis and cough, 58.7% of them were symptom-free after that 7 to 9 days. And those who took the placebo were only 5.3% of them were symptom-free. So that's a huge difference. So people got better, and they experienced less symptoms after taking it for several days. And so that's, I think, something to note, is that it takes time for time to work. It takes time for a lot of our medicines to really anchor and give us its gifts. So I recommend, if you're experiencing any sort of chest, throat congestion or difficulty breathing, that you try taking some time, maybe 7 to 10 days, and do it as an everyday practice. Drink a little bit of tea. You can use, what they used in this study was 1 to 3 grams of herb 3 times a day. So you can replicate it that way. You can also use a tincture, and for a tincture you can take 3 to 6 milliliters, which is about half to 1 teaspoon 3 times a day. And let's just see, see if your symptoms improve. But if you want to just use it as an herb to help strengthen your lungs and also just sort of give you that sense of spaciousness with your breath, then one way that is really nice is to do a steam. And so there's 2 ways to do a steam that I like to do. You can either just take a large pot of water on your stove and add some thyme leaves. They can be dry or fresh, and then let that simmer and let the volatile oils just move into your house and disperse. And not only will it purify the air, but it'll encourage you to take deep, deep breaths. Also, you can do a facial steam where you take those leaves, put them in a large bowl of hot water, and then take a towel over your head and create kind of like a little bit of a like a little bit of like a a sweat lodge just for your head and breathe in those oils and just let them go deep into your lungs. And you'll often find, I know with me, whenever I have any congestion or lung stuff, that it just really opens up and it breaks down mucus as well. Thyme is also an expectorant, so it breaks things down and moves things out. So I hope that gives you some ideas and some ways to think about thyme, beyond just something we use as a spice in um, pasta, but something that we can think of and reflect upon as a medicine to help us metaphorically move through the times we're living in with more courage, with feeling a sense of being protected, and also giving us that deep breath that we need to move forward in time without fear. So thank you all for watching. Let me know how you use thyme, any additional ways that it might be helpful for others to think about this plant as well. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys again. Bye-bye.